Hey everyone, this is your favorite history buff, and we are traveling with history. I want to cover a little Japanese history. Miyamoto Musashi, one of the greatest swordsmen in history. And he wrote the Book of Five Rings, so forgive me if I mispronounce any Japanese names or terms. I've been wanting to cover this for a while. But anyways, let's begin this shindig, shall we? Now, to get through this, I want to start from the beginning to his childhood. There was times as a swordsman, becoming one, his training, and of course his travels and duels, and the war and the peace, or should I say the battles. I won't go through details on titles or his own schools, but I do want to go through the mythos he inspired a little. You can see that's a statue of him on the right there. It was obviously memorialized, but enough of the obvious. Why don't I get through it? Now, they say he was born in 1584 to a family of samurais. The word samurai means to serve. To have the sword, a katana, is the soul of a samurai. His father did own a dojo and was a master of the fighting. But not a very good father. He was an autocrat. Hated his own son. I mean, sure, his father knew jujutsu, knew the way to sword, but I guess that didn't mean he was going to help him. Well, he ran away from home to live with his uncle, and that's when he started beginning his training in martial arts. Took him a while. And of course, when he was 13 years old, let's just say he had a duel. Arimi Kime, a skilled swordsman and gambler, believed that was his first victory. But I did forget to mention, he did lose to someone before, a monk. This is when he used a quarterstaff, because he didn't just believe in pure skill alone, but also certain different tactics, different weapons to gain the advantage and disadvantage. So now, he became a wandering swordsman in order to achieve the path of the true samurai. Now, this one is a little bit interesting. This is when he developed his two-sword style. And this is also, it did his obscurity, his wilderness, because he did a lot of his training, his discipline, very rigorous. Of course, he challenged the Yoshika brothers. And, of course, they had their own schools. And they were honor bound to duel him despite not wanting to. So Juro, he was the oldest of the brothers. He was ready, but Musashi kept him waiting. Psychological plan to frustrate him. And of course, he finally came. It was time to fight. So Juro was defeated. Musashi used a bakuto to cripple his left arm. And of course, Jiro, he was the younger brother. Very short-tempered. He lost his composure and eventually lost his life in this duel. Struck in the head by a wooden sword. Of course, they didn't also stop the rest of their clan from trying to assassinate Musashi. Let's just say they wanted revenge. That issue and all. I mean, Musashi believed in gods, but he didn't rely on them. So he set up his own way of success, tactics, traps. He eventually did fight his way out, escaped all these attempts. Obviously, survived. The pictures. Yes, I wanted to explain. That's obviously a picture of one of his duels. Hence his fight That would be with Denshijiro. Hence the wooden sword hitting him in the head. Not bad. Now, the next opponent they dealt with was Shishido Baikan. Now, Miyamoto Musashi already had a reputation as an invincible duelist, so Shishido wanted to break that. And he used the Kusarigama, which is on the picture of the right. Say a farmer tool, a sickle on one side, and of course a chain with a weight on the other side. Could use for reaching. The ball and chain, obviously, for the heavy hits, the sickle for the cuts. Or should I say hacks. Musashi was impressed. He loved that weapon, but he didn't let that deter him. He had to change his tactics, such as putting a shorter sword in his right hand, and of course the longer in his left. But he also wanted to change his stance, a confusion of tactics. So it wasn't just his body, his mind. Long story short, he won the duel. He overcame that long weapon. Next, let's talk about one of his greatest duels, possibly the greatest, dueling Sasaki Kajiro, a man of esteemed reputation. Man had plenty of schools, and he was, of course, very honorable. But hence the way of Bushido, the samurai code. They were to duel on Ganryo Island. Of course, Musashi, with psychological tactics, kept him waiting. Actually, he frustrated him a great deal. And of course, Sasaki had an odachi, a very long sword. Think of a katana with a longer blade and a longer handle. He could outreach most weapons with that. So, what did Miyamoto Musashi do? He carved out a wooden oar so he can outreach his opponent. He finally arrived, very late. And Sasaki was very frustrated, angry, deterred. That's exactly what Musashi wanted. Of course, his plan also worked when he outreached him and beat him to death with a wooden oar. One of his greatest accomplishments. A reputation, I'd say. Now, what do you say I move on to the next? This one was a little bit in warfare. Don't forget, this was after the era of Sengoku, which was the chaotic civil wars with the clans. This would lead into the Edo period, or Tokugawa period. Tokugawa was going for the right to be a shogun. Musashi fought for him, but 400,000 samurai fought. Probably one of the bloodiest battles in Japanese history. The average man would die in battle at age 25. Musashi survived this one. He was on the winning side, but the only problem was Tokugawa. He sailed off Japan to the rest of the world after he won. He also, after becoming a shogun, he also hunted down and persecuted Christians. They were killed. Tokugawa also had his rivals executed, including the son of one of his enemies, an 8-year-old boy. So any foreign religions or firearms, any ideas that were not Japanese were forbidden. Now, this was the rest of the life Musashi lived in Tokugawa's era. Now we'll get to the part where he got to his own, supposed to be his last adventure. He did have the Zen Buddhist philosophy, so in order to write his book, he'd go retreat to a Buddhist cave. I'll get to that now. Well, like I said, his final adventure. Before he suffered his stomach cancer, he wrote the Book of Five Rings, which is still readable today, a great seller. He found true enlightenment in the way of the sword, so it wasn't just a martial arts, it was a way of life. Deep philosophy. Kumamoto City was his last destination. He was invited there, in honor. All before his writing the book. After his death, I believe his followers buried him. At least they took him with honors. The Book of Five Rings goes like this. A few chapters: Earth, Water, Fire, Wind, and Void. That's exactly how he wrote those. As for the quotes, I would like to read some of the quotes. Chapter 1, Earth. Ground yourself in finding the true way. I believe they're all spiritual. This one's finding your way. Finding what's best for you, I believe. And of course, Water's the next chapter. Hone individual skills to perfection. It doesn't mean just one skill. That means all skills. Because if you're good with one weapon and not good with the other, and that weapon you're good with doesn't work, well, you're in trouble. Now for chapter Fire. Take the battle to your enemies without fear. Samurais always go into battle, looking for death. I don't remember the saying exactly. Go into battle looking to die, and surely you shall live. Go into battle looking to live, and surely you shall not. I think that's how it went. There's courage there. The chapter of Wind. Study the ways of your competitors. I believe studying your opponent's strengths and weaknesses are very important to your survival. Victory does not come without knowing your enemies. The most tricky part to avoid. By knowing things that exist, you can know that which does not exist. This one, I'll admit, it's a mouthful. But avoid, I believe that's his philosophy. The beginning and the end. But anyways, why don't I get through this part? I wanted to thank everyone for listening to my YouTube video. I have an interest in Japanese history, and I enjoyed researching this one, but there's still much more I could learn, and I could share. I was a little scared about pronouncing the names. Do a little practice. Not perfect, so I'll keep working on it. A little fun fact about the katana: it's one of the hardest swords to make. The blacksmith folds it 20 times. If he messes up just one time, he has to start all over. I thought you all might like that part. I did forget to mention he did open his schools at the end of his life. So, if the school's still around to this day, that tells you the importance. Well, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. If not, just give some constructive criticism. Let's be professional at this, alright, friends? We're all adults. At least we're all mature enough. Anyways, that's all for now. Bye-bye.